play for you this audio. This is Jamie Raskin. This is part of an interview with Jake Tapper on CNN where he plays first the Nancy Pelosi conversation with Anderson Cooper that I played, where Nancy Pelosi is asked if she supports Kamala Harris as vice president, and she never just says yes. And so Tapper wants to ask Jamie Raskin, a Democratic congressman who's running for the Senate, about this.
Not exactly a ringing endorsement. Do you think Vice President Kamala Harris is the best running mate for President Biden? And what do you make of Speaker Pelosi's answer there?
I mean, there didn't seem to be anything wrong with that answer. Obviously, President Biden, Vice President Harris, Speaker Pelosi, for that matter, all of us have been laboring under just a deluge of propaganda, disinformation, and criticism by the MAGA right. This is a rule or ruin faction, which takes the position that if they're not going to be able to control the direction of government, they are going to throw grease in the gears to try to shut everything down. And what we're all dealing with right now is this impending September 30th deadline, because the MAGA right wants to shut down the government.
You are doing what Speaker Pelosi did, which is not answering the question. Do you think Kamala Harris is the best running mate for President Biden?
Is it? Well, obviously, she gave the right answer. That's President Biden's choice, and I think she's an excellent running mate for President Biden. I don't know what more needs to be said about that. Obviously, people are still trying to, throw presidential politics into turmoil, but President Biden and Vice President Harris are running on an excellent record. $1.2 trillion investment in infrastructure, the Inflation Reduction Act, record investment in climate action. We've reduced prescription drug prices. And so there's a very strong policy record to run on there. And I want to resist the tendency to try to trivialize all politics by making it just about personalities.
It's not no one's making it about personalities. I mean, it's just a simple question. Do you think Kamala Harris is the best running mate for President Biden? You've said she's excellent. That's farther than Speaker Pelosi went. But do you think she's the best? I'm not trying to throw anything into turmoil. I actually think it's a pretty simple question. Do you think Kamala Harris is the best running mate for President Biden? Yes or no?
I mean, I don't know what else I can say other than she would be
yes.
An excellent running mate and an excellent vice president. I don't know whether President Biden has named his running mate. We're going to a convention next summer. It's a year away from now, and we're going to go through that process. So,
I mean, you say I don't know why you can say. The answer is you could say yes. You could say yes. I think Kamala Harris is the best vice president and the best running mate for President Biden. That's the answer you could be giving right now. Yes, she is.
Wow! Oh my God! Brutal. Oh my gosh, this is brutal. Now, all of this plays into other problems. The Reuters Ipsos poll is out, and it's doom for Democrats if you believe the polling. You shouldn't believe the polling, but it is indicative of where the other polls have gone. Donald Trump now leads Joe Biden in the Real Clear Politics polling average, or at least he did a short time yesterday. U.S. President Joe Biden's chances of re-election are being jeopardized by voters' concerns over his age, the economy, and crime, according to a Reuters Ipsos poll, creating an opportunity for Donald Trump to return to the White House. The opinion poll found Democrat Biden 80 tied in a hypothetical November 2024 election against Trump, age 77. The former president, who's the front runner for the Republican nomination, both receive 39% of the vote, and 1 in 5 voters is undecided. Democrats have strong advantages on abortion rights, while Republicans take an edge on crime. Worrisome for Biden, Trump holds a small advantage in the 7 states where 2020 was the closest: Georgia, Arizona, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Nevada, and Michigan. In those states, it's 41 Trump, 35 Biden, 24% undecided. Now, problem for Donald Trump is how does he get people back to him? Biden has $1 billion in the bank and hasn't started spending it. Donald Trump has $6 million with an M in the bank. and can't spend it because he's got to pay lawyers. So Biden has a money advantage to persuade that 20 to 25% of the undecided electorate to not go back to Trump. We'll see. Again, if the GOP flip the script and put someone else up there, the Republicans suddenly have a real barnstorming advantage across the nation against Biden and the Democrats, because Biden doesn't seem to be going anywhere and the Democrats can't seem to be getting him out of the picture. David Von Dreidel, who is a liberal columnist at the Washington Post and the deputy opinion page editor, has this opinion piece: Democrats are crazy to insist only Biden can beat Trump. In a nation where 50-50 debate is the defining rule of politics, a huge majority of voters, nearly 8 out of 10, agree on this. At 80, President Biden is too old to seek a second term. This is not a whimsical or ageist belief. According to Social Security Administration actuarial data, the majority of American men who are Biden's age are in their final decade of life, with the average of about 7.5 years of life remaining. I wish the president well and hope he has many healthy, happy years ahead, but a second term would take him to age 86, 12 years past the average life expectancy of an American male born in 2020. Why on earth would a political party, supposedly in the business of channeling the views of the people, tack determinedly into the face of such widespread and well-founded opposition? It's certainly not because Biden is extremely popular. The venerable measure of presidential job approval maintained by the Gallup organization has consistently shown Biden bumping along in the vicinity of 40% for most of his term, and it's not because he's a great campaigner. The election of 2020 was Biden's third attempt to win the presidency and was no more successful than the first two, until he was rescued from defeat by party leaders alarmed at the suicidal prospect of Bernie Sanders as nominee. Oof. It keeps getting worse. He's had a terrible week of press. And then there's CNN. Two major threats to President Biden's reelection: his son Hunter's legal problems and the widely held perception the 80-year-old is too old for reelection are both causing him major pain this week. I can stop here and just look at my camera and talk into the microphone and say a couple of things to Democrats. Democrats, one, the media is not carrying a coordinated talking point by the GOP that Joe Biden is too old for president. The media believes it's polling, and the polling shows Americans are concerned with Joe Biden's age. Most Americans don't like Joe Biden's handling of the economy, and they think he's too old to be president. You can say that they have bought into Republican meme casting of Joe Biden wandering off stage and stumbling and making no sense with his statements, but they've bought it, and you haven't pushed back effectively on it. Screaming at reporters upset that they're reporting on Joe Biden's age, you might as well be peeing into the wind. All you're going to do is get wet on this one. It's a relevant issue for voters. And you putting your fingers in your ear going, nah, 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 la, 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 can't hear you, can't hear it. It doesn't matter, because it matters to the voters. And you've got to win the voters to win the election, and the voters think he's too old. And they don't like his handling of the economy. He's not popular. He is tied with Donald Trump. Joe Biden has higher popularity in the polling than Donald Trump, and he's tied with Donald Trump in the polls. That should tell you everything you need to know, Democrats. Number two, Democrats, number two. If you change your candidate, you might just force the GOP to change their candidate, so long as you don't pick Kamala Harris. If you pick Kamala Harris, Donald Trump wins handily. Donald Trump, if the election were held tomorrow between him and Kamala Harris, according to the polling average, would win by 4 points. Right now, he's tied with Joe Biden. Well, he's up 0.5 of a point. If you want to beat Donald Trump in 2020, you had to go with Joe Biden as the Democrat who Americans could tolerate, the non-Bernie Sanders. If you want to beat Donald Trump in 2024, you probably need a new candidate. And in getting a new candidate, you might actually persuade the Republicans that they too could get a new candidate, and you've successfully stopped Donald Trump. At this point, keeping Joe Biden as your nominee might just hand the race to Donald Trump. So the question is, do you want to stop Donald Trump or do you want to win? Do you want to lose? Do you want to stop Donald Trump? Now, there's a reason I say, do you want to stop Donald Trump or do you want to win? Because there's also another reality, Democrats. Joe Biden might be the only guy who can keep your party together right now. You have wings between the liberal wing and the progressive wing, and they're not the same. Republicans tend to think of liberals and progressives as the same, but they're really not within the Democratic Party. Within the Democratic Party, you have the unwoke Democrats who are liberal and the woke Democrats who are progressive. And most Americans are with the liberals and not the progressives. They're with the unwoke Democrats. In primary after primary, those more reasonable-minded liberals who aren't down with the trans agenda and the pronoun games and garbage like that, they're actually doing better. The ones who aren't socialists are doing better. Joe Biden bridges the gap between the two. You get rid of Joe Biden, you might actually finally annihilate Donald Trump by forcing the GOP to come up with something different. But you hold on to Joe Biden to preserve your party. So which is it? Do you want to beat Donald Trump? If so, you need to move Joe Biden out of the way. Or do you want a probable chance of winning? Because if you want a probable chance of winning, well, Joe Biden probably is the only guy who can keep your party together. But the problem there is that he's not winning right now. He's not even ahead of Donald Trump right now. Joe Biden loses to every single Republican. The further away from Trump you go, the bigger the margin is. He loses to Nikki Haley by 9 points. He loses to Ron DeSantis by 3 points. He loses to Donald Trump by 0.5 point. Democrats, this is somewhat funny to watch. The voters don't like your nominee. The voters don't like your candidate. They think he's too old, and the best you can do is scream at reporters for daring to take what you claim is a Republican talking point, as opposed to just looking at the American public. They think your guy's too old and bad at the economy. And more Americans are thinking, you know what? Trump's economy was pretty good, even if we didn't like him. We didn't have all these strikes. We didn't have this massive unemployment. That was because of COVID, not because of him. We didn't have this cost of living problem, and we didn't have the inflation problem when Donald Trump was president. The longer Joe Biden's around, the more likely it is voters might say, yeah, things really weren't that bad under Donald Trump. Democrats, you're going to have to decide, what are you going to do? Republicans, you also have to keep in mind, every other candidate that Joe Biden is pitted against on the GOP, he decisively loses to. With Trump, he's basically tied 0.5 of a point between them. You got to decide too. If the Democrats go first, that's going to help them. If you go first, that's going to help you. The consensus of Americans is they don't want either of these guys to be president. But right now, they might just take Donald Trump if the economy keeps going worse. Oh, don't look now. The UAW just went on strike. That's going to have consequences.